Currently, Russia has given a big FU to Europe. We also think Russia could be making their next chess move in the geopolitical landmine.
Quick review of the pipeline situation in Europe. As you can see right here on the map, pretty much all the pipelines that deliver natural gas to Europe originate in Russia. The exception to this would be those that go through Turkey and more importantly across the Bosphorus. As I said, more on that in a second. But the key is that if Gazprom, which is the major Russian natural gas giant, decides to turn off the taps as they are turning off the taps for Europe, Europe is going to run out of natural gas. Now, going back to the map real quick, you could say that, well, yeah, they might turn off, the pipelines through Belarus. Nord Stream's already offline in Ukraine or whatever, right? But you still have Ankara, or you still have Turkey going through and dealing with that. But here's where I think this gets really, really, really interesting. I think what Putin really, really wants is that they want access to the Mediterranean from Crimea, which is their warm weather port. They do have other ports that will go directly to the Atlantic Ocean, but the problem is those are cold weather. In other words, they freeze over and it's hard to operate. Warm weather is the key. And so I suspect if Putin can cause enough problems for Europe by basically constraining the natural gas, that's going to put Europe, or that will bring Europe to its knees. But this is where you get back into Turkey, because I suspect what Putin really wants, or would really, really enjoy having, is Turkey being brought into the Russian sphere of influence, as well as all the other countries on the periphery. And the reason for this is right here. So this is Istanbul. Zooming in right here, the Bosphorus, right there, this little sliver that goes from there. This is the key that unlocks the Black Sea to the Mediterranean. And then from the Mediterranean, there are essentially two exits. You have the Strait of Gibraltar over here, and you have the Suez Canal over there. But if Putin can bring Turkey, Greece, Cyprus, and I guess you could argue Egypt or whatever, Syria is already, question mark too, into the Russian sphere of influence, then that means that that means that Putin and Russia have secured warm weather port access from Crimea through the Bosphorus, Mediterranean, and out into the rest of the world, something that Russia does not have and probably and arguably has always wanted to have. Anyways, going back to the gas thing, this is where it gets so interesting, because the other part of the equation is that if Putin can also bring Turkey into the Russian sphere of influence, that also means the only alternatives that currently exist short of LNG, which, yes, that is an alternative, but it's an alternative that's not going to happen for a few years, and that's, really being optimistic right now. That also brings that under control, further solidifying the natural gas connection, or further solidifying the ability to project geopolitical power through natural gas. And I believe this was even known during the Cold War. I think they called it like blue flame or like the blue weapon, because natural gas, burns. It burns blue when it's being burned. And the last thing, Josh, to kind of like tie this all together, if you want to see what's happening right now today is. And so what does this mean today? Like what's going on like right now that you can see? Well, this is an article from the BBC. And they're basically talking about how Russia's flaring natural gas. For those who don't know, flaring natural gas means you basically just burn it off. Now, there's technical reasons why you'd burn it off, but I suspect what's really going on here is Russia's giving a middle finger to Europe, basically saying like, look, not only do we have, oodles and oodles of the stuff, but we can just, casually burn it off. So I believe this is being done at the entrance for Nord Stream 1, like the last terminal on that front. But when you read through and you look at the way that the Europeans, in this case the BBC, is framing it, they're basically talking about, well, yeah, that's costing Russia money. And oh my goodness, think of the environmental concerns. And I'm just like struck dumb by the arrogance, or not the arrogance, well, I guess it's the arrogance, but it's maybe the blasé naivete of the Europeans, that they just can't see past this, because like this is a huge, huge problem. Like they are incredibly exposed. And if like you and I can see this, Josh, I just scratch my head and think, where the hell are the European leaders? Where the hell are, the European, corporate titans, blowing the whistle on this? Well, I kind of know where they are. Anyways, so basically the article is just going through that Russia is essentially giving this middle finger to Europe. And this gets back into the blue weapon and the diplomacy that involves gas. And the big picture coming in all of this is that I suspect Putin's going to continue to slowly turn off the taps for various reasons. There'll be some excuse, some bullshit reason. It doesn't matter. The reason's irrelevant. The point is, it's going to be done. And when it's done, Europe is going to be in a very, very weak position. And with Europe in a very, very weak position, if Putin is going to make a play to gain access to the Bosphorus, and then beyond that, and even further tighten his hand around the neck of the European gas supply, that's how I would do it, if it was up to me.
That's just like touching the iceberg. Europe is so far into this mess. But let's see what's happening. So Russia's turned off the taps, and we can see that currently happening. So that means their gas prices are going to be astronomically high. But at the backdrop of that, the euro is tanking. So these people have much less purchasing power. All oil and gas is priced in dollars, so they're going to have to continuously crush the euro to get more oil and gas that they are shutting off the taps from Russia. So where are they going to get it? Saudi, Canada? I mean, like the U.S. It is just looking extremely grim. At the same time, they're on the brink of a global food crisis because of these fertilizer shortages that they're seeing. Europe, I just don't see a way that they're going to get out of this. They are already seeing 250% increases in their gas bills from or electricity bills from the past year. There's just many different examples of this happening all over. The euro is there's nothing good going on in Europe right now. And I mean, it's early September now. What's going to happen in late February? It's grim.
Yeah. I was listening to a call from Ricketts earlier today, and he had a good quip. It was words to the effect of, when reality collides with delusion, reality tends to win in a spectacularly glorious way. But in any event, I certainly don't wish ill on the Europeans, but like, Jesus Christ, like, pull your head out of your ass.
It's completely their fault, because and what are Europeans doing? Are they saying we need to produce more oil and gas? We need to become self-sufficient? No, they're turning off their nuclear. I mean, if you wanted to generate mass death, this is the way that you would do it. You would cut off the food supply and you would cut off the energy supply. There is going to be extreme famine, extreme death that comes over the next few years. I mean, the US won't be safe from anything like this, but Europe is so many steps ahead of just like walking, and they're sprinting off the bridge.
Yeah. Like I said, sooner or later, the Europeans, that is the Western Europeans, are going to have to give up their beautiful dream. And I just hope they're able to give it up before it kills them. Like, literally kills them.
This was kind of talking about how Europe's messed up. But something that I thought was really interesting that I don't see too many people talking about, Justin, is that where you think Russia, what their main goal could really be, because they don't currently have any access to any warm ports.
Yeah. Or the warm weather ports they have access to are easily blockaded. Again, with that choke point on the Bosphorus or whatever, right? You can squeeze them off and constrict them.
Yes. So what other effects could they have if they get control of these ports?
Well, so there was a big brouhaha, like, not to go too far down, the conspiracy rabbit hole, but if you go back to the map, Josh, just for a second here, if you remember back to, and like, I never really looked into this, but I heard chatter, so just take this as hearsay. So, a fun food for thought or whatever, right? Supposedly the big brouhaha that was going on in Syria was that they wanted to build another pipeline, and I think it was going to run, I think, underneath the Med or through the Med or whatever, supplying gas to Europe. And that ultimately got canceled, but there was definitely a lot of geopolitical intrigue at the time. Look, here's the problem with geopolitical intrigue or whatever, right? This stuff I think is pretty fun to talk about. The catch is that what you and I can see, and then even like what the experts like Rickers or George Friedman can see or whatever, right? They can see much more, but they still don't see a lot into the equation. And so it gets really hard to like see the ins and the outs of this, but you can at least kind of detect when there's ripples. And there was a lot of ripples against that natural gas pipeline. I do think that the Russians are not fools. I do think Putin is not a fool. I think anyone who thinks Putin is a fool is being gloriously deluded in their own means. And anyone who believes, Western media is as idiotic as anyone who believes RT today, don't trust anything, don't trust anyone when it comes to this stuff. But I would say that natural gas it's just like, the reverse repo problem, whatever, right? There is a geopolitical angle above and beyond the utility that natural gas provides for this. And I do know that whenever you have something that might change the natural gas landscape, and when I say landscape, I mean, who are the players, who are the buyers, who are the sellers, and who has the power, that causes ripples in the geopolitical sphere. And it has for a very long time. Yeah.
So what would the trade be here?
I would say the trade would be going long on natural gas would probably be an interesting thing. As I've had to go long on natural gas, that I'd have to do some work in. But just personally, while I am not long in any energy companies right now, I am seriously considering putting on a position, some call options in a major, to see what happens on that front. And I am long on some wheat calls for for January.
Personally, I've been extremely long uranium for a long time. I was very long gas, but I closed all my positions for a while now. I'm looking to re-enter. If we do start to see a global slowdown, and I mean China's pretty messed up right now, so that could drive gas down a little bit. I mean, if we start to get back in the $60-$70 range, I'll probably go straight contracts on the actual oil itself, because the companies, I don't think they're going to perform extremely well, because I don't think their cash flows will be great. I just think that the supply is just going to continue to get tanked of the actual oil. And then I would say one more thing is, I haven't done any research into this, but if I could see some mid to smaller tier European businesses, I would be looking to go short those, because if the price of gas just continues to skyrocket, these companies are going to have to shut down. And if they go into a massive depression, I just don't see them coming out unscathed, or I mean, even in the slightest bit of any remote health. I think Europe is going to have mass shutdowns of a very high rate, because there's just no way. Let's say you're running a small business, and you're seeing this all over the place on tons of different articles. If you're running a small business, your energy bill triples. What are you going to do? You're going from paying $2,000 to $8,000 for energy. It's not feasible to maintain that business, because you're going to go under. And I think you'll see this get much worse. This is at oil and gas prices at $90, $100 to $110. What happens if that doubles from here?
Yeah, and this is just the European angle. What happens if the dollar continues to, I mean, this is Brent Johnson's dollar milkshake thesis in a sense playing out. Because if commodities are still priced in dollars for pretty much the rest of the world, and the dollar continues to skyrocket, or back up, you've got this double-edged sword, because if commodities are priced in dollars, well, that's a problem there. But of course, there's a bigger problem with the euro-dollar debt market, where if you have to service debt in USD and it's costing you more to get USD because your local currency is depreciating against the dollar, well, that's another huge, excuse me, friend.
Yeah,
that's another huge problem you've got right there. So
my only advice would be to stay as far away from Europe as humanly possible.
Yeah, I wish the Europeans the best of luck, but
at least, I mean, like London, I mean, just like the terrible and intricate woke cities. Germany, I wouldn't touch it with a 30-foot pole.
Real shame too. But anyways, Josh, that's pretty much what I've got for right now. So